Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. I had quite a few requests to do a tutorial on this Peacock, so I thought that's what we will do today. This is on a postcard. This is a greeting card. I just thought it might be kind of fun to do it a little bit bigger, so you can work on whatever you want. If you don't have watercolor postcards or greeting cards, just take the watercolor paper you have and cut it to size. This is about 5.5. Well, no, this is about 4 by 5 3/4, and the greeting card I have is 5 inches by 7 inches roughly. So, you know, you can do whatever you like just on the back. If you're going to do a postcard, you could just put like a line and some lines for an address and mail it just like you would. I'm using Inktense here because I figured if I am going to send this through the mail, I don't have to worry about Inktense running. And then for a little bit of sheen, I'm going to use some metallic watercolors. These are the Derwent metallic watercolors, and I've pre-sprayed these with water. I have not pre-sprayed the Inktense because the last time I did that, I got way too much. So I don't recommend pre-spraying the Inktense, but anytime you're using a metallic watercolor, definitely do that. And those metallic watercolors are very much the same as the material that were in the Derwent, the old style metallic pencils that were water soluble, but this is better because you can get a lot more. But whatever metallic paint you have, go for it. You don't need metallic paint. That's just kind of a, if you want to. I'm going to use a teal, this is actually Kingfisher blue watercolor pencil. Actually, this is Derwent as well. This is all Derwent stuff except for the brushes. They're not sponsoring this video, but I just thought it was fun since I do have these. That would be fun to use them together. Now I'm going to sketch right with a watercolor pencil. That way I don't even have to worry about it dissolving. So I'm going to get a kind of like a circle for the head, leaving a space where the beak's going to be. And then I'm going to bring that line down. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I want to make sure, I think I'm going to go actually grab a brown pencil, and I'm going to do the beak, and I'm also going to do kind of the little barbs that go up to the plumage here. Get the beak. I might make the head a little bit bigger because I do have more space here, and I seem to be drawing it the same size, if not maybe a little bit smaller than the postcard size. They're not that different in size, so I don't want to make it too big. It looks like a seagull beak there. I don't want that. Get the bottom part of the beak in and see. Oh, that's a little bit better. Now your watercolor pencil is going to dissolve, and you're not going to see, I think I want that head a little bit bigger. You're not going to see those lines. Just don't I'm not using any pressure really with this, so don't go jabbing the paper. Sometimes if you have a watercolor pencil as well that's maybe not quite so soft, it will it'll leave a mark. You really don't want to dent the paper, so just keep that in mind as you're working so that you don't end up with too thick of a line. Okay, so let's see, the eyelid is going to be right about there. Alright, so going to sketch in the eye. He looks so grumpy. I find that sometimes when I draw birds, they just look grumpy. I don't know why. And sometimes they don't. Actually, peacocks just look kind of grumpy, I think. The other one I did looks grumpy too. Oh, what you got to be grumpy about, peacock? Peacocks don't they seem like they'd be kind of like grumpy birds? Anytime you see them, it's like they're squawky. We don't have them around here, I don't think. I think they're more of like a warm weather bird or a zoo bird. So I'm drawing the little barbs for the plumes, and I think I'll probably just paint in the rest of that. Now I want to make a note of where the light area is on the face because I am going to try to reserve some of that white. Now I can use the Inktense block in white to go over it because it's quite opaque, but when you're going to have a staining color underneath, like, well, Inktense, once they're dry, they should be fairly water resistant. However, on watercolor paper, especially the watercolor paper that I like that's got a good sizing, by the way, when you draw, make sure that you got the opening on the right side. I've noticed that on watercolor paper with a lot of sizing, sometimes the Inktense doesn't fully fix. So I just wanted to make sure that that was taken care of. All right, so now one thing I did realize that helped me when I was using the Inktense, if I wanted to make sure that it was going to hold fast would be to wet the paper first and then add the color. For whatever reason, I think because it disturbs the sizing underneath, it seems to work a lot better. And my apologies for the noises in the background. Yeah, that's just how it is. You know, it's loud house with the kids home. There we go. I'm just gonna wet this. I might not wet the whole area. Well, I guess I could. I think it will stay wet long enough. You don't have to, especially if you prefer to have the control of doing wet on dry, but we're gonna layer up, so I really want those bottom layers to, I gotta admit the bird a little bit, ooh, the bottom there is a little bit thicker than I want. I'm gonna see if I can scrub that back since it's just watercolor. Oh yeah, that's working just fine. That was just a regular watercolor pencil. I'm gonna blot that off. I will have to be careful in that area because now if I draw on the stamp paper with the pencil, it's going to be very hard to dissolve, so I just want to let you know that, but I just want to get that line in there right. That's a little bit better. That is a tip though, if you go on damp paper with your watercolor pencils, and you will be able to keep those lines, even with a regular watercolor pencil. It doesn't have to be a like an Inktense pencil. I'm going to give it some little feathers up there too. Take advantage of the fact that I've got that line. All right, hopefully you can see that well enough. I'm using a number 8 round, I believe. Yep, number 8 round. You could go bigger or smaller. Well, number 8's a really good size. I'm going to start off with, ooh, I think, I'm going to look at my hand painted swatch. I'm going to start off with this, what's it called? Turquoise. Oh, and I started it right in the spot I said not started in. Jeez. I am not firing in all cylinders this week, guys. Having one of those weeks. I think it'll be fine. I'm going to add some spatters. Some spatters make everything fine. When in doubt, guys. When in doubt. You do the spatters. What a pretty color, eh? Okay, I'm going to do some spatters. Why not? Oh, I love it. I love the spatters. I don't care for spatters on that guy because they'll just add a little more character. I'm not going to worry about it. So because I've wet the paper, that was going to help that lock down a bit. I'm going to grab some, actually, you know what? I'm going to try some of this metallic green here and put that right in there with the Inktense and see what happens in those areas where I do have a lot of metallic. I wonder if that binder in the Inktense will lock it down. I'm not sure. This is a card anyway, it's going to go in an envelope, so I'm not really concerned with like stuff happening to it, like it getting wet or whatnot. Now I'm using I think it's called Bright Blue. Let me just double check here. Bright Blue, yep. And feel free to use any watercolors you want for this. Use some viewers reminded me of microglaze, using that over your postcards if you're using watercolor, or Dorland's wax, or honestly, I usually just rub it with a bar of wax and heat it up if I'm concerned. To tell you the truth, I rarely do that because I think postcards usually make it all right. But you know, those are just some options you could use if you're concerned that you're going to send something in the mail and it's going to, oh, I want that wetter. Did I tell you the origin of this? I found this at the Dollar Tree the other day, and the little white, you know, they have that section where they sell candles and they have these little tiny like ring dishes and stuff. I thought that would be the cutest palette, so it was $1. I grabbed it. They also had more of those feather ones. If you've seen my feather ones, I probably have that. I usually keep it right behind me in a drawer, in a thing. I'll show you if I can see it right off the bat. Oh, guys. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not going to dig for that. But anyway, I have a little feather one that you've probably seen me use in projects before that I really like for that. And I got that at the Dollar Tree as well. I just love little white dishes for palettes. Ceramic is so nice to blend on, so I thought, I don't know, I might use it. If not, it fills up the space nicely. I'm going to add a little bit of that green, that turquoise green. So these are basically just like the blocks. They do have some new colors in this palette. which is kind of fun. And the colors they selected here were designed to be light fast. I think the only one that's not considered light fast by the ASTM, or blue wool scale I should say, is the cherry. So there's the blue wool scale is a scale of 1 to 8. Anything 6 and above are considered light fast. The fuchsia's a 6, and the cherry's a 4. All the other ones are 8. So I think they developed a few new colors, or they took some of the old colors and developed a more light fast version and renamed them so that they could have the light fast versions in those pans. I really like them. I think it's a little more convenient for me than the blocks, even though I have the blocks as well. All right, take a little bit of that color and use it on the beak. The nice thing though is because you can layer it up, you can be a little on the sloppy side to begin with. I want some of that mid ultramarine. That's a color that I noticed in the Derwent Lightfast range when I got my first little set of 12, or as I call it, the gateway drug to Derwent Lightfast pencils. It's such a pretty color, and I'd never noticed it before. It's kind of like a pretty periwinkle color, and then and I'm like, I don't think they had that in the Derwent pencils. I had the pencils and the blocks for a long time, and I'm like, I don't think they had that color before, and they didn't. It seems like they just well, it seems like I looked at what I had, and seems to be a brand new addition, which is kind of neat. I love it when companies add to their range and keep with their quality standards. Now I want to put some of that kind of teal in there. Still going with that same big brush. You can go with smaller brushes if you want to, but I like to use a big brush. It keeps me from getting too fussy. Just be careful around any wet areas if you don't want this to bleed. I'll be going in with some darker details around there, so I'm not too, I'm just going to leave a little bit of a gap there so it doesn't bleed into the beak terribly. And I'm just going around that area that I wanted to remain white. Eyelid should be blue, bluish teal. And that should be a little more dark in there. I think while it's still wet, I'd like to integrate a little bit of, I think I want to get a little bit of brown or maybe gold in there. Let's mix our, hopefully these mix pretty well. I'm going to could mix it, let's mix it on a ceramic. Look at that, I love it. Of course, I usually wouldn't have my palette over there because I'm right-handed, and there's a good chance I'm going to drip stuff over my my work, but I'm a thrill seeker today, guys. So I'll just flick a little bit of that on there. Is that thick enough? Now I find these I'm wearing these down a little faster than I do watercolors, like given the same amount, about the same amount of use. So just something to be aware of. You might end up using through them a little quicker, but they are cheaper than watercolors and like artist watercolors, and you can get them open stock. So, so I don't think that's that big of a deal. But I did want to mention it, because I know, we can get precious over our materials sometimes. I am guilty of it too. Some of that up here. I wish I didn't get so loose with the barbs, but I think it's gonna be fine. All right, so let's get the eye painted in. I think I might switch to the smaller brush for that, mainly so I don't get too much color on my brush. And let's see, let's do this. I like this kind of like, it's a light red, I believe, or an English red. It's a real pretty color, but it's a little intense on its own. I'm gonna add a little more yellow ochre, a little bit of that other brown to it, make that gorgeous kind of eye color. I haven't had a problem mixing these, but they are a little, they do have a little bit of a silt. That's the only thing I can explain. It's not really a chalkiness, but it is a little bit of a grittiness to them. And these are a little bit more opaque. They seem a little more opaque than the pencils to me. I found the same about the blocks. They seem very, very much the same as the blocks. I'm gonna cross-pollinate that color up here. So just keep that in mind. because it might, you know, you might get mud a little bit easier, especially if you're not that used to mixing. I'm just going to stain that white a little bit because it seems a little too bright. What I'm doing is taking a damp brush and just kind of grabbing some of the nearby colors and dragging it in. Just going to give it a little bit of a toning there. Okay. I want to integrate some black because this is Inktense. It's not watercolor. You don't have to do this though. If you want to mix a black like a ultramarine blue and burnt umber or burnt sienna, go for it. In traditional watercolors, I'm going to use the black because I want that punch. And I'm going to put it in the eye. Now notice with these Inktense, I did not reserve any of the whites of the eye because I know that block is actually strong enough to cut through that. So I'm also going in with the black and it's very freeing because I typically don't use black, but I find this kind of freeing. I'm going to go in and add it in any of these darker areas. Now you'll notice the Inktense doesn't bloom as much as watercolor, so I don't even have to really worry too much about the paint being completely dry underneath. And of course, on the other side of that coin is that if you want to get like salt effects, you're not going to get the salt effects. And I think it's because the Inktense, once you're using it, and why I don't recommend spraying it first, because you just get too much pigment at once. It's more viscous and it's not, you know, it's not flowing in the water as much as like a traditional like artist grade watercolor would. It almost acts kind of like with the viscosity, it's almost like a student grade watercolor, but you still get the vibrancy, and it doesn't lift off like a student grade watercolor would, which would be a little bit more, you know, chalky. So it is kind of a unique thing. You definitely can do this project that I'm doing today with watercolors. But I did want to put a few Inktense pan and block tutorials out because I did have some requests for them. And I'm just having a lot of fun with this new set of blocks. They had a good price on Blick. I don't know if that's, I thought it was probably their regular price that Blick had, but now I'm not so sure because all their other Derwent stuff has been on sale. I grabbed the light fast colors I didn't have. And they had this set for $35. Now don't quote me on it. I think somebody said they went to the Blick store and they said that it was on sale to the end of the month, but don't quote me on that because I have no, I can't say for sure, but they had that set for $35, and I thought that must be their everyday Blick price, but I'm not so sure. By the way, this video is not sponsored. I'm just telling you where the deals are. I don't like people to pay more than they have to, and if they, you know, it's also good if you're supporting an American store. And by the way, for my viewers that are not in the USA, generally your best price is going to be Jackson's Art Supply. I'll try to remember to link link these up on both Jackson's and Blick, and then you can work out with shipping what's going to be a better deal if it's something that you're interested in. But like I mentioned, you can use what you have. This is going to work with watercolors. You just might, like this stuff I'm doing here, you might want to hit it with a hairdryer real quick. Hit it with a heat tool, make sure it's dry before you go and start layering so you don't end up with lifting or weird blooms or anything. Now I'm just like, basically as I start running out of pigment, I'm doing the shadows that aren't super black. Doing just the darker shadows on the beak. I can soften it a little bit if I go right in there with a clean wet brush, but I'm not going to be able to lift much of it, but I can layer over with the white block if I want to. So keep that in mind. Your scrubbing back is not going to be that effective. Okay, the chest is dried up quite a bit, so what I'm going to do is, I've got a couple blues here. I think I'm going to take this one here, which is more of a navy blue. Oh, isn't that pretty? It's like an ink blue. What do they call that? I gotta see. That's called navy blue. I was right to begin with. And that's actually an Inktense block color. You can get, and I think everything with the turquoise and the mid ultramarine that I've used has been an Inktense block. Actually, that is burnt yellow ochre. There are very similar colors in the Inktense blocks, but that particular burnt yellow ochre is, I think, new. Well, not by name anyway. It's new to the pan sets. But you know, you don't have to have the exact same colors. We're all, you know, we all have different stashes. You should never feel like you're home and you're like, well, I can't leave the house. We're in a pandemic. What am I going to do? You're going to paint. You're going to use what you have and you're going to paint. And it's going to be fine. When did we think that we had to have everything look exactly like the person we saw online? Well, I guess probably since social media started to be a thing. You certainly don't, you know. I don't think that's a good feeling. I mean, it's good to know about these things if it is something that would be useful to you, but I don't think you should feel like if you don't have something that you can't do the thing. All right, I do want to grab a little bit of that color. Bright blue and navy blue mix, add a little bit up here. Just kind of dotting because those short little feathers up here almost look like dots. I had a drop of water on the ferrule of the brush, and if that slid down, that would make a mess. So, especially on a watercolor painting. I can use the navy on its own. I can go over some of the black. If the black looks harsh, just dab dab. Can use some of that navy up in these little flags up here. I feel like I want some splashes up there too, so why don't I just go ahead and use some of that. Here's what I have left here. Splash a little turquoise up there too. I love that color. Actually, the turquoise is a new color, but there's I think there's one called Parrot Blue in the regular Inktense range. It looks very similar. Now I'm just kind of dabbing. Any place I feel like, oh, that's too much detail, too much pattern. And so if you want bigger splashes than you've been able to muster with your brush, and you can just splash water, and sometimes you can get that to spread out a little bit more, or you can dab on water, and then you can drop the paint in and get a little bit more of a larger organic shape. I love doing that around the edges, especially when you're doing like a pet or an animal portrait, but you don't really have, you're not doing the whole body. It's a great way to transition it from like the object kind of just to the atmosphere. All right, let's blast this for a second with the heat tool, which is conveniently always plugged in because I got a big hook from the dollar store so I could hang it on the side of my table. Oh my gosh, they're 5 for $1. What a bargain those were. I did a YouTube short video on it because I just really need to dry the face area. I don't need to dry the rest of it. I did a YouTube short on it because I thought that's a really great idea, but it doesn't need a whole video. I mean, seriously, it's just putting a hook on the side of my table. It was like a, I don't know, 50, not even, no, I think it was like a 35-second video, but it got the point across. Maybe you should spray the whites before you use it. Oh, maybe I should clean my brush really well before I do that. So, you know, if you want an opaque white, you might want to spray that first. But I don't know, it's coming out pretty good to me, I think. I might need a smaller brush. This brush is number 2 round, Creative Mark Mimic. Those I get from Jerry's Autorama, or they're also available on Amazon. They're shipped from Jerry's Autorama when you get them on Amazon, just FYI. I think most stores will sell their hot products, both like on their own site and also Amazon, just to kind of get that market exposure. You know, because some people they don't want to order someplace new, or they don't want to like pay shipping for one brush, you know. So it's not a bad idea to check both places. Oh, let's see what else. I'm gonna brighten this up a little bit more. And I can do little hairs, just flick little hairs on like that. I don't think you really need the metallics on this. If you have them, they're kind of fun to give a little bit of a, just a little bit of a sheen, especially on, I like metallics on cards and postcards because those things are going to be picked up. I also like them on like art journal pages, things like that, because you know those pages are going to be moved and they're going to catch a light. But I feel like if you do metallics on top of on top of a painting that's going to be behind glass, you lose a lot of that, you know, that color. Now, I could use a white pen to do the area around the eyes, but I think what I'm going to actually do is take some white with a small brush and mix it with the kind of taupey color that I made over there to get a real pale beigey tan. And I'm just going to kind of tap around the eyes to get that texture of the membrane around the eyelid, I guess. The waterline. And that's a great color if I need to flesh out the beak at all. Let's warm it up a little bit. I like that. All right, I also feel like I need some black with a small brush, so I'm going to take the small brush. I might even, it might not hurt to have a tinier one, guys, if you have one handy. A number 2 is usually good. This one I've had for quite a long time, so it's getting a little worn. I've been using it. I use it frequently, and I've used it for a couple of years, so it is getting a little... You can also use a micron. If you use a micron, just make sure that it's completely dry before you go on to draw with it, or you'll ruin the micron. The micron needs dry paper, or it's not going to behave well. Sharpen up that highlight in the eye. And really, that's pretty much it. I don't want to add too much detail elsewhere because I want the focus on the face. But if you want to add some more metallic details, you certainly can. This green is real pretty. Oh, bead of water. That's what I was telling you not to do, but luckily we've got the Inktense layer underneath that shouldn't bother too much. Oh, good, it didn't. Man, you got to be careful. I catch myself all the time and get a little bead of water on your handle, and then it wants to go kaplooey. So the metallics are going to look the best over darker areas. So I would do like the blue or the white or the green metallic. You can flick some of that on too if you want. Don't cover up everything because you need a little bit of that contrast for it to look nice. Maybe do a little bit of the blue. It soaks up, it's a very thirsty paint. It soaks up the water. So you might even want to spray it a couple times during your process, but that pretty much does it. Let it dry. If you want to see the dry version, make sure you head over to my blog or Instagram, and I'll have everything linked up in the video description. I want to thank you so much for watching. I love how you can paint the same thing. The same person can paint the same thing 2 different times and they look quite a bit different. That's why it's always fun to teach in person and see everybody come up with their projects, because everyone's a little bit different even though we all painted the same. It's so fun. And I miss that. So thanks for painting with me today. I really appreciate the company. I hope you do too. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and until next time, happy crafting.